Hi, I'm Matt with Meat Church. Today, let's make monster beef ribs. So beef ribs, to me, the king. It's the best bite in barbecue. End of story. It is the bite that I took that made me fall in love with Texas barbecue. I grew up on sweet barbecue in the South. I was down in Lockhart, Texas, which is known as the barbecue capital of the world. I took one bite of a beef rib, seasoned simply with salt and pepper, cooked with post oak, and my head snapped back, and I was like, I want to do this. So this is personal to me. But I've got a special guest with me again today, my buddy Chad Ward. Come on in here, old boy.
Man, I tell you what, you got a Kleenex? After hearing that story, I need to dab up a little bit, man. That's awesome.
I'm trying to get emotional on them here, trying to hook the audience in. Look at this.
Oh, the beef ribs are so amazing.
No big deal. Found these at my local HEB grocery store here. But
you guys have it made in Texas when it comes to finding briskets and beef ribs, man.
Yeah, we're a little spoiled. So what this is, before we jump into this too much, these are beef ribs, 3 bones. The cut is known as a 1-2-3A rib, also known as plate ribs, short ribs. People always ask where you can find these. Obviously, I told you I'm lucky and found them at my grocery store, but I'll let you give some tips. But what I tell people, you usually go to a butcher and ask for them, you're gonna find them. If you can't find these, if you find chuck ribs, they have 4 bones in them, that's a great alternative. Or if you ever go to a place and you see cross-cut beef ribs, little tablitas, you can ask the meat department, hey, can you leave those whole? And you can buy them that way, but I don't know if you have.
You actually stole my tip there. Usually, that's my whole thing. Is if you see the Korean short ribs, go ahead and say, "Hey, are you guys cutting these in here?" And if they are, they've got the plate ribs for you. So no, I think that, and just knowing the 123A, if you go to a butcher that's a little, what exactly are you looking for? Having that USDA number always helps. But most butchers,
yeah, everybody knows who it is.
If they don't have it, they'll get them for you.
So here's what I say about beef ribs. This is going to be so simple, but we're going to give you a couple key tips. It's so simple, it's hardly even fair to call it a recipe, but just because you put seasoning on it and you throw it on your Traeger doesn't mean that it's going to turn out how it's intended to turn out, and we'll get to those tips at the end. But it's, I think, one of the easiest cooks and the best tasting cook, and everybody should do it.
I'll tell you what, the good Lord blessed us with this one because it's got so much marbling, so easy to cook, so resilient, and so dang good.
Yeah, I can, kind of face this to camera and see the marbling is insane.
Even these. Back here too. I mean,
this is prime beef. This is not, Wagyu or anything crazy like that. So I'm gonna jump into a little bit of trim while we continue to talk about this. But let me show you the backside first on the membrane side. First tip I'm gonna give you: I don't pull this membrane. I used to pull it at one point in my barbecue journey. That's really the only thing holding these ribs together. And on pork ribs, I like to pull it because I want the seasoning to penetrate the back. But look, if you don't know that, there's a list in Texas called the Texas Monthly Top 50. It's 50 of the best barbecue joints you've ever had. And those guys generally aren't pulling the membrane, so don't mess with it. All I'm gonna do before we get into seasoning, you don't have to remove all this fat across the top. Fat's flavor. So all I do is I look for where it's hard, like right through here, and I'm gonna shave a little bit of that off, but I'm okay leaving a thin layer. You don't have to remove the silver skin. That is not necessary on these whatsoever. So I'm super simple on these personally.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I think too, you have to remember this is gonna be a long cook. So any of that silver skin you do leave back is gonna break down. And once again, just keep it simple. And like you said, where you got that little heightened fat at, trim it down to where it's all nice and even, gonna cook nice and even.
Yeah, I've seen people, we're influenced a lot by what you see on social media, and or not, maybe not influenced, but at least you kind of see what people are doing. And some people think that you have to completely remove all of this, and I just don't think that's the case.
Well, and there's also up here, when we get to the top of the bone, if you really try to chase it, you're going to end up taking away a lot of great red meat by trying to chase all the fat. So
that's a great point.
You do not want to get into that habit.
Yeah, you don't have to. And sometimes I don't trim anything. This just was a little hard on top, and hard fat doesn't really render well, so I'm just removing anything that's hard, and that's it.
Well, and the hard fat too, not only does it not render well, but when it gets warm, it likes to wash all of our seasoning off, which is going to destroy our bark and hurt our flavor at the end of the day.
But you hit on something that's right. People will be so worried about trimming these so much, and you see I did expose meat, but there's basically like nothing there. You will dig into this. They'll be really kind of funky shape, and it's just a light trim is all I'm going to do.
And definitely listen to Matt when he says don't pull the membrane. If you ever try to pull that beef membrane, and I know we've both done it in the past, It is not as easy as a pork membrane. You gonna be there a while.
Little bit of work.
You may want to have 2 of them Miller Lights, old boy. You gonna be there.
I'll probably have 2 anyway.
Okay.
To be real honest with you, but
I'm down with that. Cheers.
Everybody's gonna ask what you got in there.
Well, then obviously you don't know me. It is Tito's and LaCroix.
All right. Well, let's talk seasoning. So
Yep.
I'll start, and then you can go deep dive here. So Texas barbecue is known as salt and pepper, but I'll tell you that of the top 50 joints, they're not all just salt and pepper. There's usually a little bit more. It can just be salt and pepper, if you want.
Yeah.
So I season with our Holy Cow, which is basically 80% salt and pepper, and it has a little bit of garlic, which is a great beef flavor. By the way, I'm not putting a binder on these. People can put a binder if they want. I'm just not. I'm just going to season these today.
Go for it.
So why don't you talk about
And
what are
so-
other things you like to season with?
So to me, like on the Traeger rubs, I've comboed the coffee and the beef rub on this, and I've liked it. A lot of times with the coffee rubs, I always tell people, Traeger's got one, I've got one in the whiskey bent line. Even if you don't like coffee, what it leaves back is that kind of savory note and a little bit of darker color. So beef and coffee, I've used on this really well. The prime rib rub from Traeger is awesome on beef ribs too. Done that several times, but man, and this is one you are laying it in the way I do. This is another nice heavy seasoning because this is a big chunk of meat going for a while.
Thank you very much for recognizing my seasoning skills. I was recently trolled on YouTube for my seasoning skills, and I needed that vote of confidence.
Oh, hey, I got you, buddy. Little shot in the arm.
Thanks,
You're doing
buddy.
it right, Matt.
Well, and I'll tell you, there's a little bit of latitude with this, however you want to do it. Some people think, oh, they just need salt and pepper. Fine. I've seen people put a little bit of sugar in a rub, to help build a little bit of a, cookie crust barbecue. That's fine too. This is nice and simple. What I like to do from here is I want to let it adhere, 15 to 30 minutes. I always say on big cuts of meat, do this the night before if you want. We're not going to wait that long, but we're going to let this adhere, and then we're going to jump into cooking.
Yes, sir.
These beef ribs have been sitting for just about 20 minutes. I'm happy with it, ready to put them on, so let's talk about cooking.
Yes.
So what I like to do, I like to go, as heavy of pellet as possible. In Texas, we make, Central Texas barbecues post oak. So, you can use mesquite, you can use hickory. And then cooking this is couldn't be any easier, to be honest with you.
Really a blank canvas, super simple. And once again, kind of like one of those, depending on how much time you've got. I mean, optimally, you're going to cook at 275 for 8-9 hours. But, if you had to speed things up or slow things down, you've always got that opportunity too.
Yeah, so we've set the ironwood up today, 250 degrees. Just give it a little more smoke, let it run a little bit longer. And what I'm doing, I cook this a little bit different than a brisket. And what I see a lot of people do is they cook them to the point of thinking they're done, and I personally think that you should push them a little further. So with an instant read thermometer or with your meter probe, whereas if a brisket was done at say 202, 203, I like my beef ribs to go closer to 210. I
I'm right
want
there
an
with
epic
you.
bark. I want them super jiggly, and we're actually going to demonstrate that. And tell you one more thing, I don't actually wrap. I don't do any wrap on my beef ribs. I like to run them through. It's okay if you do wrap 2/3 of the way through,
Sure.
80% of the way through the cook, but I like that bark, so I go in no wrap personally. I don't know about you.
Well, and I go no wrap also, and just like we showed earlier, that marbling allows you to get away with that.
Yeah.
And then the bark it builds, and you think about it, that is such a thick beef rib. You want that bark as thick as possible so you can get a little bit in each bite.
Yeah. And if somebody doesn't want that, if you want to wrap in butcher paper or foil, you certainly can, but we're going no wrap today. So let's get these on.
Let's do it. All
Well,
right.
You guys can see here that we've got a couple more racks that we've been cooking.
I got the lid.
Well, that coordination was like Cirque du Soleil
Man.
level coordination that we just pulled off right there.
Loved it.
All right, so the differences in these two. This rack is a little bit smaller, so it's a little bit further along in internal temp. This rack's a little bit bigger. And what I look for at first is you're looking for this great bark, which is obviously there, and then I press all over. And there is some serious give here. And I know
There
that will
is.
be hard for you guys to tell, but my finger is about to run through this. Now these that aren't as far along, they are a little more firm. Now, a lot of people pull them at this stage, and here's what I'll show you by this. So these are temping, by the way, this is like butter, but these are temping at 210.
Yep.
These are not as far along. And so, well, let me just show you here. So these are basically 198, 200 or so. Yeah, 201. I think most people pull at this stage. It's going to be beefy. It's going to be good. I don't think the fat's going to be rendered as much, so I like to go further. So,
I'm right there with you, my man. Like, it is so tempting to take this off right now, but it's like you let it get to that 210, all that fat has just cooked off. It is so much more delicious.
So, I mean, we can cut them both this way. Like I said, it's still going to eat good, but obviously they're super hot, so we've got to let them cool off. So we're going to let them rest here and cool down to ambient temperature for a while, and then we'll be back to cut into them and show you how we did. Okay, well, these have rested about an hour. I'll tell you that they can rest a lot longer. A lot of people don't focus on this, but the decrease in temperature is honestly just as important as the increase in temperature as you're cooking. So this is something that you can rest for several hours, and I would recommend it. I'm not gonna make everyone wait, while you guys are here for this. So we've just rested these about an hour. I like to rest down to 140. Full disclosure, these are down in like the 160s or so.
But this bark, man, that is what I can't wait to have a taste of. It just looks absolutely delicious.
It does look pretty barky.
All right, here we go.
Let's see, moment of truth.
Woo! Hear that cut? Oh, look at that.
So you see,
look at that.
Let me hold that together. The fat, like this is what I talked about. I see this stuff on Instagram all the time. You see this big fat through here. It's not properly rendered out. Yes, it's going to taste good. It's going to be beefy, like I said.
That is all,
but it's all gone.
Down.
The only thing you see left is a little bit of fat that I left on top when I didn't trim, and now you know why I did it. I think, my briskets, I like fat side up because that fat is flavor, and when it's rendered and it's nice and brown like that, that's what you're looking for. So.
Perfectly cooked, old boy.
I feel like we did okay.
Gorgeous. Oh, absolutely.
The Traeger Ironwood performed flawlessly. All right, so let's cut this one. I'm going to try to cut this a nice, huge, beefy.
All right, we'll see you all
later. You hear that?
Woo, dang.
Oh,
there we go.
Man,
I thought the first one looked good. Son of a gun, look at that. Perfectly rendered, old boy.
She thick.
Man. Oh, now we get to sampling?
We're gonna come off the end down here.
Woo, I like that.
That's good.
Dang.
I know I cut us in. I should cut those.
Right okay. There.
I mean, man, before I take a bite, that's like a meteor on the outside. I love it. But it's like just super pillowy, givey.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, just that feel.
Enough talking.
Cheers.
Oh, my God.
Oh, gosh. The crunch of the bark. And then right into velvety, beefy, that little bit of fat. Oh, God, dang.
Tastes like Texas.
Yes, good. It does. That is delicious, old boy.
Man, that's super good. I'm going to hold that back up. The pepper on top, like, it gets no better. Kansas City can have their cute little burn-in. I do like burn-ins, but it can't hold a candle to this. This is the undisputed king of barbecue, in my opinion.
And this is why you cook the 210 internal right here.
Man.
To have the bite that we just had. That is amazing.
Super duper good.
So good,
well, man, I'm glad you came out. Appreciate you coming. This has been fun.
You serve me beef ribs like this all the time. I'll come back anytime.
I know how to
I'll work for food, old boy.
Well, the recipe is down in the description of this video. It's also on Traeger.com. It's in the Traeger app. You have to download the Traeger app. So many awesome recipes in there. See y'all next time.
More bite. That's probably the best bite of food you've ever given me. That was really, really good.